The Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Jeff Brantley.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in episode 88 of the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. Jeff Brantley here, back on a Friday edition of the show, an early Friday edition here. A lot to go over today. UFC Vegas 27 coming up Saturday. We also have some big boxing this week and a super welterweight bout between Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez. Going to go over that as well. Friday night coming up tonight. Also looking forward to some of these cards coming up. You have Bellator 259, Cris Cyborg in action, taking on Leslie Smith for that featherweight title. Some other good fights on that one. LFA 108 coming up, Invicta 44. I mean, we're so jam-packed this week. Just so many. I mean, last week we had UFC 262, a massive card, a lot of great fights. That was our main focus. This week, though, just jam-packed with a ton of cards, a ton of fights. Not one singular card that we're going to be looking at. A bunch of them, though, and that's what you, of course, can expect every single week right here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. And I'm going to go over everything. We're going to preview everything. UFC Vegas 27. I'm going to go over it with my guy Luke Lampe from Sparring with Reality Betting at SWR_betting on Twitter and on Instagram. Check him out. Of course, many of you already follow him. Luke's going to jump on with me. We're going to do that first. Go over UFC Vegas 27. Talk about a lot of the bets you need to be looking at, preview the card in general, and then after that, after Luke jumps off, I'm then going to go into all of the other cards. I'm going to preview Bellator 259. I'm going to preview that LFA card, that Invicta card, that boxing card, and Bellator, everything. Wall to wall here, guys. You don't want to miss it right here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. Going to be a fun show for sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley. Same thing on Instagram, guys, at Jeff_Brantley. Go check out the website, maninthecagemmma.show. You've seen some of my tweets this week. I put a tweet out there earlier this week with a logo and that website. You want to go check it out. It's got everything from an about page to merchandise to support the show, little as $1 a month, all the way up to $10 a month. I'm able to do this because of all the supporters of the show, so go check it out if you love the show. I would greatly appreciate that. I love all my supporters out there. That's up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. There's some other things as well, the latest episodes, link to all the videos. We're on YouTube now again. Not a surprise, not a new thing, but we're on YouTube. That link is up there, maninthecagemmma.show. And then again, you can go to the YouTube channel, Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. You want to make sure you subscribe to that. We do EA Sports UFC 4 simulations here of all the main events every single week on these UFC cards. We also see some other exclusive content, the episodes here. Going to start doing some other fun videos, some other spoofs, things like that. And then I also going to do some more lives. I did a live last week. I'm looking to do a live today actually as well. And I don't know if it's going to be on Instagram Live yet or if it'll be on YouTube. I'll figure it out. I'll tweet it out. Again, you want to follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley. But those will also be posted even if I don't do the live on YouTube. It'll be posted afterwards on YouTube. So go check it out, the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Check all the videos out. Some cool past content as well. And see how correct we were with a lot of these UFC 4 simulations of all these main events and some co-main events as well, too. We a couple weeks back, or the last pay-per-view, UFC 261, we had 3 simulations up there because of how many title fights there were on that card. So go check it all out. Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast on YouTube. If you're more old school like I am sometimes, I like to just check out the audio version of things. If I'm in the shower, getting ready for the next day, if I'm going to the store, if I'm going home from work, I'm driving to work, in the car, I like the audio version of things. So go check that out as well. It's on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, guys. Hit the subscribe button there to hit the follow button. That way you get the latest notifications whenever a new episode of the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast drops. All right, everybody, let's get into it today. As I said, so much to get into. My guy, Luke Lampe, he's standing by via Skype right now. I'm going to head out to him right now. Pleased to welcome onto the show now via Skype someone who has graced this show many, many times. He is Luke Lampe from Sparring with Reality Betting. Luke, UFC Vegas 27 coming up on Saturday. How's it going today, man? We're going to get into this card a bunch. How are you feeling going into this card as well as another betting card coming up? I should ask you, too, how'd you do on UFC 262? We'll get into your Patreon and how people can look up all your plays in a second. But how'd you do on UFC 262, man, and how you feeling going into UFC Vegas 27 here?
Yeah, I took a small loss, I think 1.54 units. It was kind of a pretty volatile card just in the sense that I think there was only a couple fights over like 60% indication. I mean, everything was pretty tight. So I think the chalkiest bet I had was -120 or -125. And I think I had 4 or 5 plus numbers in there. So took some chances, took some risks. I did bet Viviane Araujo. I thought she won the fight personally, and that I thought was kind of the difference between winning and losing night there, which sucked. But nonetheless, like I said, took some chances. So small loss, all things considered, not terrible. But this card this week should be pretty fun. A lot of fun matchups.
It should be, and you mentioned, 262. Obviously, we're not going to go into that too much, but that was a greasy card. I mean, one of the biggest favorites on the card, Gina Mazzani, was around a -220, -200 favorite. She loses her fight after Mike Beltran decides to stand him up in the middle of the second round. So that was definitely a tough card. UFC Vegas 27 coming up, though. As I said, we're going to get all into it, including the main event in 1 second here. But as always, going to shout Luke out here. Luke has partnered with Patreon. If you're looking for MMA betting advice, Luke is one of the best out there. To sign up to receive any of Luke's bets, go to his Twitter or Instagram handle. Again, that's @SWR_betting. There in Luke's bio, you can find a link to Patreon to get all of Luke's bets for each card, each UFC card each week, guys. There's 3 tiers to choose from: a $10 option, a $15 option, a $20 option. To get more information, again, on each tier, head over to Luke's Patreon on social media to check it out right now. And as we always throw out there, too, in addition, Luke is also the co-host of the Club and Sub podcast. You can catch him every single Wednesday night on that pod as part of a roundtable with other MMA bettors as they talk about all of the upcoming MMA cards, the UFC cards. In fact, Luke, I saw you, what was this, about a week ago? You were actually guest hosting over there, man. If everyone missed that show, if you missed it, go check it out. Luke was actually guest hosting a show about a week or so ago, and then he was on this Wednesday again. So if you missed that, go check it out and check out the Club and Sub podcast every single week with Luke Lampe. All right, Luke, let's get into it, man. And, well, I should start here, though, actually. Before we get into this card, let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about today. Joshua Fabia breaking up with Diego Sanchez. I mean, that's got to be topic number 1 today, right? I mean, we'll just break that down for a full 2 hours. Just joking. Again, we're not going to get too much into that. We're going to get into the full fight. But that certainly was some breaking news today, Luke, there. I saw you tweeting out about it as well. Joshua Fabia, that saga done with Diego Sanchez. Maybe they'll add Sanchez back to this card. Just joking. They're not going to do that. But UFC Vegas 27, getting into it. Main event coming up on Saturday night. Cody Garbrandt taking on Rob Font in the bantamweight division. This one, a power puncher's delight here, and one that'll be very interesting as you look at both sides, Luke. Rob Font, he's going to have a significant reach advantage going into this fight. Both guys similar height, but he's going to have a big reach advantage, which could play big for Rob Font here. Font coming off some big victories. Cody Garbrandt coming off a big victory for himself. He broke that 3-fight losing streak last time out, which was last June against Rafael Assunção in stunning fashion. Maybe one of the knockouts, if knockout of the year of 2020. So just so much to unpack in this matchup, Luke. And, even throw extra in there, Cody Garbrandt, the time off because of the bicep injury and then COVID, and how is that going to impact him here? We've seen Khamzat Chimaev and others have in other sports too have a lot of issues coming back from COVID. So, maybe it plays a factor here. Maybe it doesn't. So much to this matchup, Luke. How do you see it playing out, though, between Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting matchup. I think it's kind of a fight that a lot of people are looking to, I guess, plant their flag on this week, and that's not like burying anybody in doing so. Maybe there's people that have an exponentially stronger read on the fight than I do, but I do think a pick'em is probably about correct. I think you can make a case for either guy being slightly favored, but I think it's kind of right around where it should be. I guess really the key for Font is I think he needs to be the guy going forward. He needs to dictate the pace. He does land over, I think, double the output statistically than Cody. And Cody actually, I think, is about even in what he throws, which is kind of ironic given the amount of success he's been able to have, but largely predicated on the power. So I think if Font can dictate the pace, go forward, land more, win the optics, I think that'll open up the KO shot for Font as well. If not, I think he's probably the more likely of the two to win minutes, but we have seen Font dinged and hurt before, despite, never being quote unquote knocked out in his career. Cody's got scary power, man. His movement on the outside is actually pretty good. It's just when he kind of decides to bite down on the mouthpiece and let it fly that we've seen some of those poor defensive tendencies rear their head. So there's still really no evidence, in my opinion, that he's really corrected that. And Font hits hard, so I can see finishes for both guys, but I lean with Font to get it done. In the sense that if it's an extended fight too, I think I'd slightly lean him.
Yeah, and I mean, we can get into this just a little bit more for a second here, but that reach advantage, I mean, does that really play into it for you as well, that length does add up a little bit? And especially like you said, because the last time out against the Suns out, we saw a somewhat more controlled Cody Garbrandt, and I say somewhat more because, Cody's going to Cody. Whenever Cody Garbrandt feels like, hey, I'm going to open it up, he's going to open it up. Now, I have been tweeting out all week that for Cody Garbrandt's sake, I think he's actually lucky. Well, it sounds weird saying that he's lucky himself that he's fighting at the Apex, but can you imagine Cody Garbrandt last week at the Toyota Center with 16,000 people screaming and, $75,000 on the line? Cody would just be letting it rip in that first round. Second round, he would be just letting it fly like we've seen, and that's when he gets into a lot of trouble. So certainly I think it's going to help maybe a little bit that he's at the Apex, no crowd, but that length of Rob Font, does that play into it for you as well? And maybe I'll flip it to the other side again here. Does the fact that there's going to be no crowd there, or at least, if there is going to be some people, it's not many, does that play into it for Cody Garbrandt for you? Do you think there's any chance Cody maybe comes out and still shows maybe a more tempered approach in this fight?
Yeah, to be honest, I think also given the fact that it's a 5-round fight, I actually do think we might see a slower paced first round here. But it's also really just predicated on Font approach for me. Because his fight with the Sunsaw wasn't particularly encouraging. He just really didn't pull the trigger a ton, really just struggled with the counter game of a Sunsaw, was just overt, way too patient. Even back in the day, got doubled up on strikes by Lineker. So I think, it's the pressure game he needs to play, but it's also still like the mid-range pressure game, if that makes sense. I don't necessarily think it's the pocket where Font wins, even though I could see him having success there, but I think that's probably what more favors Cody. So I do think the reach could play, and I actually do think we might see a bit more conservative Cody, but I still expect him to let it fly at points.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Cody's going to Cody, and I'm one of the biggest Cody Garbrandt guys out there. I'm actually with you. I'm going to pick Rob Font in this one. The length's too much for me, and like you said, I need to see it multiple times. I would need to see it for multiple rounds before I believed, look at Cody Garbrandt and say, oh, he's a changed fighter now. His approach has changed. I'm going to need to see some of that. So I'm going to go Rob Font here. But, when Cody's on, obviously, he's got some of the fastest and some of the most powerful hands in the bantamweight division, heck, maybe the whole UFC. So, and a lot of mixed martial arts, too. So if Cody comes out there and he is tempered, like you said, this could be a 50-50 spot. He could look really good and hurt Rob Font. And Rob Font's never faced, he's been hurt before, like you said, and he has faced guys like John Lineker, but a lot of guys don't have the power that Cody does. But I do agree with you. I am going to go Rob Font here. I think the length will be a little too much. And over the course of 5 rounds, which a lot of, Garbrandt fights have not gone 5 rounds, as he's got 10 knockouts in his 12 wins. The other losses he had, he was getting knocked out somewhat early in fights. So I do think Rob Font, a lot of this leans his way in the main event of UFC Vegas 27. Let's go to the co-main event here. This is a women's strawweight clash, a pretty good one too. You have Carla Esparza taking on Xiaonan, and Xiaonan, kind of that up and coming woman on the block here, where she's probably, I don't want to say going to get a title shot after this, but she's getting close, obviously, right? She's 13-1 in her MMA career. They're throwing big names in front of her like Claudia Gadelha, now Carla Esparza here. The UFC's trying to build that resume for her. So a big spot for Xiaonan. But Carla Esparza, she plays spoiler. That wrestling, just wrestling, chain wrestling approach that she always has can give a lot of women problems. And we did see in the Xiaonan Gadelha fight that Gadelha early in the fight, typical Claudia Gadelha, right? First round looking pretty good before she gassed out. She was giving Xiaonan some problems. So this is an interesting matchup, Luke. How do you see this playing out between Esparza and her wrestling approach and Xiaonan and more of her let's try to keep it standing and striking approach?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a diametrically different take than probably most. Maybe my pick will be, but just in terms of the stylistics, I mean, it's pretty binary. Carla needs takedowns. If Carla doesn't get takedowns, Jan's going to look like a pretty solid bet at -125. Conversely, if Carla gets takedowns, Carla's going to look hindsight most likely like a pretty solid bet. She's pretty much got bet all the way down to down to pick them. But honestly, I'm more on the side of Esparza. Personally, her wrestling metrics are awesome. One of the few girls that comes from a traditional wrestling background, over 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, gets them at a decent clip. She's a long time, battle-tested vet, been around forever. She's a girl who I think just maximizes her win condition. She understands her strengths and weaknesses, and so she's going to go to that here. The question is, can she squeak 2 rounds? Because that's been the one issue with Xiaonan, even going back to her fight with Kylan Curran in her debut. She got taken down quite a few times, and I think controlled for, damn near 9+ minutes. Angela Hill took her down a few times, probably would have actually submitted her if there was more time left in that first round with the triangle. Then we saw Gadelha have some wrestling success early too. So, I mean, she's dropped rounds via wrestling in all 3 of those fights, obviously came in on top in all 3 of those fights. But I do think Carla is the best wrestler she's fought. So it's going to be a bit of a, I guess, questions answered kind of fight here if she's going to be able to consistently stuff the takedowns of Carla, because that's the one thing with Jan that's also been pretty consistent, is that when she gets taken down, she's not usually getting back up. So
Yeah.
not particularly encouraging, but like I said, I have no delusions that if this is a 15-minute striking affair, that Xiaonan's probably going to piece Carla up pretty good. So, but I lean with Carla just based on the fact of her wrestling, her ability to dictate the pace of this fight and where it takes place.
I agree with you, and I'm taking Carla Esparza here as well, that I do think if Esparza is able to get those takedowns off, able to use her wrestling consistently, or mostly consistently for the 10, 12 minutes of this fight, whatever it is, get some of that top control going. As you said, Xiaonan has trouble getting back to her feet sometimes. It will be Carla Esparza's fight, but it is one of those where, and without getting too specific here with this one, and we'll get to the next one in a second, the next fight, but would this be a good live betting spot possibly here where, if Carla Esparza is coming out, again, if she's not scoring those takedowns round 1, or even if she is, and let's say all of a sudden Xiaonan second round, we're into the first round, maybe she starts to figure it out a little bit, starts to stuff some of these, would that be a good, in your opinion, live betting spot at that point, that maybe she does adjust mid-fight and then it becomes a striking battle? And that's where I worry the most about Carla Esparza, that she's gotten better over the years. She's added some things to her repertoire, but she's overall not a complete striker, and she'd be in some trouble with Xiaonan if she's on the feet. So would this be a decent betting spot for you, a live betting spot, if in fact, and again, that's a big if Xiaonan can start stuffing some of these takedowns mid-fight?
I don't know. I think it could honestly be a trap too, because from what I remember, I believe I live bet Gadelha after the first round against Jan too. And that's kind of been the theme though. I mean, she's really only dropped those first rounds that very first round of those 3 girls in Curran, Hill, and Gadelha, and she's always won the second and third rounds of all 6 of her UFC fights. So there have not been, obviously given a record, has not been one girl that's taken 2 rounds off of her. So even if Carla comes out and lands takedowns early, I think it's probably a good sign for the fight. So I can see that, but I can also see it being a little trappy. I guess probably the main thing I would look at is just how easy is Carla getting in on her hips, and pretty much how early did the takedown come? Like, was it just like easy? And there's really nothing to suggest that, she's going to struggle to get him in the second. Then I think, then lay your chips where you will. But I'd say be a little cautious with it, because it could be a trap.
Yeah, it's, even if at one point of the end of the first round, like I said, or portions of certain rounds, if Xiaonan's even stuffing some of these takedowns, Esparza's got a good enough gas tank where she's just going to keep trying to go to that bank. And unless Xiaonan's just absolutely stonewalling her on every single takedown attempt, Esparza can just keep trying to go to that bank, compared to where Claudia Gadelha, again, she tires out normally. She doesn't get those takedowns late in the fight. So definitely, I agree with you there. It could be a little bit of a trap. Carla Esparza, I'm with you on this one as the slight underdog against Xiaonan. And, speaking of traps, just a little bit, the UFC heavyweight division here on this UFC Vegas 27 main card. Justin Tafa taking on Jared Vanderaa. Vandera coming off a loss against Sergey Spivak in his, we'll say, UFC debut, although he did, of course, win on Dana White's Contender Series to get that contract. Justin Tafa also himself coming off a loss against Carlos Felipe. It was a split decision loss, though. This is an interesting matchup, Luke, and not to rip either of these guys, but to me it seems also a little bit like the UFC. They didn't have a heavyweight fight last week. They didn't have a light heavyweight fight as well on that card. And they looked at this card and they said, oh, crap, well, we probably need to get some heavyweights in action here. We can't just keep leaving the heavyweights off all these cards. So they threw this one on the man card here. And I'm not saying it's going to be a fun fight, because Vandera, we've seen on Dana White's Contender Series, in his fight against Sergey Spivak, he leaves himself really open. Justin Tafa, he's gotten a little more controlled, but another guy who's fun, explosive fireworks. How do you see this one playing out with the big man in the heavyweight division, Luke?
Definitely pretty tough. Not the highest level fight in the world.
Yeah.
I would say Tafa's probably got the better opponents, more finishing upside. But the thing with Vandera as well is that he's been pretty difficult to finish historically, at least with strikes. He's been submitted a handful of times, but Tafa doesn't really possess much of a sub game. So I don't know if I really feel comfortable laying minus 175 on Tafa. I also do think that Vandera has a pretty clear path on the ground should he decide to take it. From what we've seen from Tafa on bottom, it hasn't been particularly great. I think Vandera just did get his black belt back in 2022. So once again, haven't really seen him offensively wrestle much over the course of his career, but at least on paper, I think he has a perceived grappling edge in this fight too. So it's interesting, gun to my head, I guess I would probably, go with Vandera just from a value side, but yeah, I really don't want my money anywhere near it.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is kind of a weird matchup. I think it's going to be a fun one. I think there's going to be some action. And by the way, Vandera, too, he's got a little bit of a significant reach as well in this fight, as well as height. But, not that Vandera is a super long, he doesn't really fight at the end of his strikes super long like that. This is going to be an interesting matchup, and I could really see it go either way. And I think the lack of experience for Tafa, too, is somewhat puzzling a little bit. We have Bellator 259 coming up on Friday. Justin Tafa seems like a Bellator guy right now, that he doesn't have a lot of experience, but yet he's fighting in a high level promotion. Not saying Tafa couldn't ever be something, and not saying he hasn't shown anything, but it's a weird matchup for sure. And you add on top of that, them being heavyweights, anything can happen. We've seen that throughout mixed martial arts and even boxing, combat sports history here. Definitely an interesting matchup. Yeah, this might be we talk about sometimes a stay away fight if you're betting it. This is a little, would you agree with me there? Maybe this is a good stay away spot for everybody, or at least temper your expectations here, Tafa and Vandera.
Yeah, I from a money line perspective, I think it's probably good to stay away. But I honestly, an angle I don't hate, if you are looking for some action on this fight, is actually to go the over 1.5 route, or the fight starts round 2. The fight starts round 2 is minus 170 right now. I think that's a pretty crazy number personally. I know it's heavyweight, I get it, but like I said, Vandera has been just pretty difficult to get out of there historically. Tafa also fought a lot more composed in his last outing too. So I think anything like almost anti-violence early is probably how I would play it.
Yeah, and that's always so difficult for me too, that you see a heavyweight fight, right? You just want to bet the under, you want to mash it, you want to steam it, but sometimes you do have to be a little careful, and this could be one of those spots, like you said. Yeah, Vandera, pretty tough guy. Even the Spivak fight, it took Spivak a lot of ground strikes, a lot of ground control, and a lot of dominant positions to get Vandera out of there. So it's an interesting fight. Like you said, maybe just play the rounds in this one. But I'm with you. Maybe if I had to pick a fighter, I'd probably lean Vandera here, because of some of his jiu-jitsu skills, because of some of that groundwork he does, but definitely a tough fight, and should be a fun one. See some fireworks between Tafa and Jared Vandera. All right, moving along this UFC Vegas 27 main card, we now have a women's featherweight division fight. Felicia Spencer taking on Norma Dumont. Felicia Spencer, speaking of Bellator 259, Spencer, the only 2 losses in her career, of course, to Amanda Nunes, to Cyborg. She can tell her kids someday that she went the distance with both of them, was not finished in either fight. So Felicia Spencer has that going for her. And, overall, Luke, you see that Spencer, we'll see what happens. Maybe she improves and gets to a level where she could beat an Amanda Nunes or a Cris Cyborg, something like that. But Spencer just seems right now like she's just a slight level below those women, but still very good, obviously. Now she gets Norma Dumont in front of her. Dumont coming off of a win against Ashley Evans-Smith. This an interesting fight again, though, because you look at the odds where Vegas has this one, and at first you might just say, well, Felicia Spencer's got to be a pretty decent favorite, right? And not saying she's not a good favorite here, but she's not a minus 300 favorite in this fight. A lot of sports books having her around minus 185, minus 200, maybe at the most. What are your thoughts here between Spencer and Dumont? Do you think Spencer should be a bigger favorite here? Or, does some of Norma Dumont's, grappling, does some of her skills show out a little bit here against Felicia Spencer?
Actually, I guess maybe I might be in somewhat of the minority. I guess maybe not based on the recent line move, but I actually think it's a fight for Felicia Spencer. I know Norma Dumont looked pretty solid in her last outing against Ashley Evans-Smith, but that was back down at 135. Ashley Evans-Smith has fought at 125 pounds historically. She came into that fight injured as well, and Ashley Evans-Smith just really didn't throw much back at her. So I've said, despite like mechanically in her looking good in that fight, and obviously putting a pretty solid beating on the girl, it's easy to look like a superstar when you're fighting someone who's hurt and not really throwing anything back at you. And then before that, we saw her go, get deaded by Megan Anderson in less than 3 minutes. And really the only fight out there that she's been proactively wrestled and grappled was her fight right before the UFC against Mariana Moraes, where she went to I think, majority decision, where she got taken down about 3 times, stuck on her back for 7 minutes by a girl who's not even going to sniff a Bellator card in this Mariana Moraes. She actually just fought Kayla Harrison back in PFL and got ran through in under a minute 2 weeks ago. So granted, that fight was 3 years ago, could have Dumont, improved her bottom game in that time, potentially. I think she is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, but Spencer is a solid black belt, pretty strong from the body lock, reliable to wrestle and shoot takedowns. So it's kind of a show me spot for Dumont. If she can stuff takedowns and be defensively responsible on top, I will take my hat off and be surprised. But I think Felicia Spencer's reliable to do what she's going to do, and I think she's going to wrestle here. And I actually think she finishes Dumont in the first round personally. But if it is a stand-up affair and Dumont's able to stuff takedowns, I anticipate the striking to be pretty competitive, but I would probably lean Dumont. I'm just really bullish on the take that Spencer's going to get takedowns, is the better grappler, and is live for a finish. So,
yeah, I agree with you. And, this seems, again, like another spot where Felicia Spencer, being in that featherweight division, the UFC really not knowing what they're going to do with the featherweight division. They had Norma Dumont, who looked good, as you said, in her last fight. And they said, okay, we have Felicia Spencer under contract. It doesn't look like Megan Anderson's going to get any more fights, at least for right now in the UFC. Again, the UFC, they have no future plans, or at least, again, they haven't really commented. They said they're still debating what to do with this division, but we still have Felicia Spencer under contract. We need to get a woman who can go up, right, and can reach that weight class with Felicia Spencer. We need somebody to go face her. Norma Dumont looked good. Here's the matchup. And again, I'm not totally writing off Norma Dumont saying that, but I still think this is a very good spot for Felicia Spencer, who has been in there with Cris Cyborg, has been in there with Amanda Nunes, has shown off all of her grappling, all of her wrestling. In the other matchups, she was able to, when she wasn't getting dominated by elite level fighters. So I'm going to go Felicia Spencer here. I do agree with you. I think she finds a finish at some point, as long as she could find those takedowns, but I don't think she's going to have a hard time with it. I do think she gets Norma Dumont down. I think she looks dominant, and I think the UFC after this one, again, is going to be scratching their head on what to do with this women's featherweight division. Even Bellator right now, again, Cyborg fight. I mean, she's fighting Leslie Smith again. I mean, it's not an overly, that's not a matchup that's going to get you necessarily out of your seat, just knowing what happened the first time. I mean, they're just names, right? So both promotions right now, especially the UFC, going to have some hard times finding matchups in these featherweight divisions. But I do think Felicia Spencer gets a win there. All right, moving down to flyweight here next on this UFC Vegas 27 main card, Luke. David Dvorak taking on Rayleon Paiva. Paiva, he got off to a rough start in his UFC career. I mean, he comes out, he wins on Dana White's Contender Series, but then he loses to Kai Kara France. Then he loses to Bontorin due to a cut. But since then has looked very good. I mean, the Mark De La Rosa fight looked very crisp, knocks him out. Last time out as well, UFC 251, he got a win there by unanimous decision. Dvorak, though, also a very game opponent, 19-3 in his career. He's on a huge winning streak. I mean, he hasn't lost since 2012. So a very interesting matchup here, Luke. A couple high-level flyweights. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I've kind of been a big fan of Paiva for a while now, but honestly, I've done a bit of a 180 on him. Not to say that I now think he's horrible or bad or anything, but I'm, I guess, a little bit more skeptical on his overall ceiling. despite, some of the success he's had in the UFC. He's really not really going out there and blowing anybody out of the water per se. Like even the Mark De La Rosa fight, like I think he only outpaced Mark by 10 significant strikes prior to the knockout. And Mark De La Rosa, really isn't a striker. He's a jiu-jitsu guy who just kind of lets it fly. And, he hit Paiva clean quite a bit too. So ultimately, he's just been in a lot of close fights based on his style. And I like the activity and actual boxing of David Dvorak just a little bit better. So I think he can do more in this fight. Maybe has some wrestling upside, but Paiva's been pretty difficult to hold down historically. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen him held down really extensively in the UFC. His get-up game's pretty elite. I think purple belt in jiu-jitsu too. So I lean with Dvorak, not a super strong take. Just after the Zhumagulov fight for Paiva, he just didn't do enough there. He was very inactive, and he swung and missed a lot against a guy who he massively outsized on that fight. In my opinion, I thought he actually lost personally, and I had a decent sized bet on him as well, actually.
Yeah.
So, but I bet David Dvorak against Jordan Espinoza. I think those leg kicks will be there for him too. I actually think he can win this fight from the outside if Paiva takes the center too. Like I said, I just think he can be a bit more busy, a bit more active, win the optics, and just do more over the course of 15 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to Dvorak here as well. And, Paiva is one of those guys where he's good enough. Again, maybe he makes some good leaps and bounds here. He's good enough where he can stick around in the UFC for a while and he can win fights. And he can even, maybe in this matchup against Dvorak or others, he can give some guys some issues. He's got a little bit of power. He's got some clean striking at times. He's got enough everywhere where he can stick in the UFC. He's not going to necessarily go on a big losing streak unless he's facing elite level guys like Kai Kara France, if you want to call France that, or some of these other guys. So Paiva's good enough to do that, but you saw in that last time out, I totally agree with you that he has some issues with output. He has some of those. I mean, the Mark De La Rosa fight, I bet Paiva in that fight, and I was sweating it a little bit that, second round before he found that knockout, he was landing some clean shots, but Mark De La Rosa was hanging in there a little bit with him. It started to make me sweat a little bit. So I agree with you, though, Dvorak here. I think he wins. I think he, over the course of 3 rounds, does enough to beat Paiva in this flyweight contest. All right, next up here on the UFC Vegas 27 main card, and the actually final fight of this UFC Vegas 27 main card. And surprising to me, maybe they changed this, Luke. I mean, you can talk about this one too. I mean, I'm surprised that Jack Hermansson, Edmen Shahbazyan's the fight that's going to open up this main card, because, I mean, just last week it was supposed to be on UFC 262, like the third fight before, there was only the co-main event and then the main event, I believe, after that was scheduled on 262. So it's kind of weird that it's opening up this fight night here, but nonetheless, should be a very good matchup here on UFC Vegas 27 between Hermansson and Shahbazyan. And this is kind of one of those, cards now, Luke, with Shahbazyan that it's time to answer some questions, right? Because last time out for Shahbazyan, he's shown all of the talent in the past, and he's shown that maybe he could be this next elite level fighter. But against Derek Brunson, he had a massive amount of issues, really got beat up in that fight. And I know Brunson's made huge strides, and he's had a second win in his career, but Shahbazyan looked very bad in that fight. It was only a matter of time before he was going to get stopped, and finally he did. So you have Shahbazyan coming in off that loss here. Chance to answer some questions, but he gets Hermansson in front of him here. Now, Hermansson, not that he's proved the world as well. I mean, he's coming off of a loss against Marvin Vettori. He did have a win over Kelvin Gastelum back in July of 2020, but he did also lose again to Jared Cannonier back in 2019 via TKO. So a little bit of a fight where let's see who answers the bell here. Let's see who answers some questions, Luke. How do you see it playing out? Who gets back on that winning streak between Hermansson and Shahbazyan?
Yeah, I feel like it's just one of those quintessential fights of really who's able to get off on their game, I think, succeeds, which sounds like a basic take, but I really think that's what the take is for this one.
Yeah.
I think Hermansson's submission grappling is elite. His wrestling, I think, is okay, but I wouldn't say it's great by any means. But when he's on the ground, he's got that really nasty sit-out guillotine, good back take, rear naked chokes, very, very heavy on top. Hanson's much more aggressive, a better submission grappler, more live for a finish than Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson's, I think, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, collegiate wrestler, but largely, lay and pray guy. Anytime we even saw what he did against Holland, prior to that fight, where I mean, Hermansson's just a savage on top. Like if he gets you down, like he's gonna do his damnedest to go and get you out of there. He's completely the opposite of a lay and pray type of guy. So. I guess early on, it's going to be interesting if Edmen can go out here and stuff these takedowns or not, because I think it's definitely a scenario where Jack can go out there and put him out in the first round. Conversely, though, if he's not, and this is an extended fight, I'm not necessarily sure that exactly favors Edmen either. I do think Edmen is the better striker of the two. I think that's pretty clear. We've seen Hermansson knocked out before. Shahbazyan's cleaner, has a ton of power, definitely live for a knockout here. But really the only two fights we've seen for Edmen that have been out of the first round and extended in a few other capacities, he's gotten tired and he's lost. So he still really has not shown he can go out there and put on a complete 15-minute performance. That is yet to be seen from Shahbazyan. So I think Hermansson checks a few more boxes for me. I think the line's probably right around where it should be, but I think it's probably a better fight to target just overall fight violence in under 2.5. A fight doesn't go to decision. If you want to get a little dicey on the 1.5, I think that's fine. But I think based on who is ever able to get off on their game, I think either guy most likely finds a finish. So that's how I'd play it.
Yeah, and you mentioned Shahbazyan's issues after he's the fights where he has gotten past the first round, and Hermansson's style of grappling and his jiu-jitsu, that's a grinding style, obviously. So I think, like I said, I think there's going to be questions answered about both of these men in this fight because, if Shahbazyan comes down and he looks super improved, then the narrative is going to be, well, where does Hermansson go from here? Once maybe title challenger now looks to be on, sinking down a little bit. He seems to be a little down in his career. So questions all around to be answered. But Edmen Shahbazyan has a few more of them because of that grinding style from Hermansson, because if he can't find that finish early, can he dig deep later in this fight and find a victory? I agree with you. I think Hermansson is, if I had to pick one, I think he's the more logical guy to pick. Something tells me, and maybe this is just a confidence, this is a dart throw again. Again, if I actually had a gun to my head, I'd probably pick Jack Hermansson. But something tells me maybe Shahbazyan, after his last loss here, maybe finds something going forward, maybe corrects a few things. Cardio, let's get back to the basics here. Let's find ourselves again. So I might be willing to pick Shahbazyan here to beat Jack Hermansson. But again, if gun to my head, my life's on the line. Hermansson, the grinding style, the wrestling, being in some big spots in the past, you probably do have to lean that way a little bit. But as you said, maybe some of the underplays here, both these guys finishers, you feel like maybe someone's going to get finished. And that's why it's a bummer that this fight didn't happen on 262. It was still a good card, obviously 262 was, but that would have been fun in front of 16,000 fans, both these guys going at it. So a bummer there, but I'm with you. Maybe some of those underplays will be good here between Hermansson and Shahbazyan. Let's go down the prelims here, and we'll just kind of break them into pieces. And if there's anything, again, there's so many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 prelims on this UFC Vegas 27 main card as of right now before the weigh-ins coming up Friday morning. So if there's anything you really want to point out, there's any fights you really want to talk about, just shout it out, Luke. But we'll start out the feature prelim. You have Ricardo Ramos taking on Algeo, Ben Rothwell taking on Chris Barnett. It's funny that Barnett's, everyone's been, tweeting out some of the pictures of his past fights. That should be an interesting one. Court McGee, Claudio Silva, Bruno Silva, Victor Rodriguez. Some of those, anything stand out to you there, Luke? Anything you'd be looking at? Any fights that really intrigue you?
I think the Algeo Ramos one is like a hardcore's delight. I was pretty bummed when it fell out.
Yeah.
The last time out, I was hoping they were going to rebook it just from a general intrigue perspective, because the clash of styles between the two is very interesting. Both black belts in jiu-jitsu. Algeo definitely higher output, but Ramos is another guy who I've always thought has a really high ceiling, but hasn't really fully maximized his potential yet. I believe he's down at American Top Team now too, which is encouraging. Has a few more bodies to work with, but Algeo's given his back before. I think Ramos can probably take it and probably sub him. I think it might just be a levels type of thing in terms of the jiu-jitsu, despite Algeo being a good grappler himself on the feet. I also think Ramos is probably pretty live for a KO, but in an extended 15-minute, striking affair, I think the optics and output of Algeo could do it for him on the card. So once again, another really close fight, not one that I have a great read on, but I'm just really going to enjoy sitting back and watching this one.
Yeah, and I think that's why I agree with you there. Maybe some of the optics of the judges will give it to Algeo, as you said. And that's why I do agree that it is a close fight, but as the Vegas odds makers have shown that they still have Algeo as the favorite, at least most sports books do, even though it's close, it's getting somewhat close to a pick 'em there. I agree with you there. It should be a very interesting fight, and it's a good choice for the feature prelim of this UFC Vegas 27 card. And, keep moving down. I mean, did any of those other ones, you want to get into Rothwell, Barnett, McGee, Silva, Rodriguez, any of those, or do you want me to keep moving down the list here?
Honestly, I think Rothwell should smoke him. It's probably his biggest step down in comp in the last 12 years. Conversely, this is easily the best guy that Chris Barnett's fought by a mile. Not to mention he's coming in on short notice. I think he's at a 7-inch height disadvantage, a 6-inch reach disadvantage. When you see a minus 300 next to Rothwell, you're usually kind of like, I don't know about that. But honestly, I think it is justified in this spot. I think Rothwell actually probably finds a finish. Sneaky play. I think his subline is like plus 900 or something. I think that's an interesting little sprinkle. We've seen Barnett shoot sloppy shots, get his back taken multiple times, mounted. Rothwell, Purple Bone Jiu-Jitsu can grapple too, submitted a guy in Josh Barnett. So it's a little sneaky conspiratorial angle there at a big plus number, but I think Rothwell might be able to sub him. But I think he's pretty live for a knockout too. Silva, McGee, Silva probably the most live, early for a sub, but his gas tank's bad. McGee probably the better minute winner, more volume. McGee probably wins a decision. Silva, Rodriguez. Once again, another levels kind of fight. Rodriguez comes out of the Alaskan regional scene. Haven't seen too many of those guys have a lot of success. Silva, competitive, if not beaten. Some pretty solid UFC level fighters. So I think Silva probably comes out and smokes him. That's kind of what I was looking at for those ones.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Bruno Silva and Victor Rodriguez, then Rothwell Barnett could be, and not to say there won't be some other ones on this card, could be two of the more lopsided fights possibly on this card. And like you said, I mean, the Rothwell one, when you first see it, you're like, oh, Ben Rothwell aging, heavyweight here, been in a lot of fights. That can't be right. And then you know who Chris Barnett is. You've seen his career. You do more tape research on the fight, and you're like, yeah, Rothwell, even at the age he is, that price makes a lot of sense here against Chris Barnett. Honestly, if Rothwell doesn't find a finish here, I think not that the UFC is going to cut him, but this is one of those spots where hey guy, go out there. We've kept you around. You've been somewhat entertaining, but you're aging. Go find the finish here. Give us a crowd pleaser in a heavyweight fight. I agree with you on Court McGee. I mean, the veteran maybe digs down in a close fight, finds something there against Claudio Silva. The rest of this card, Luke here, Yancy Medeiros, Damir Hadzovic, Rafael Alves, and Damir Emizgulov. Anything stick out to you in those fights, Luke?
I've always been a big fan of Ismagulov. I think he actually has top 10, top 15 potential at 155 in a pretty deep division. And I've been saying that for 2 or 3 years now. Granted, his strength of comp hasn't been great, so I concede that. We need to see him fight a better guy before, I can really put that official stamp of approval on it. But just from an overall skill set, the guy's very good. I kind of compare him to a 155-pound version of Magomed Ankalaev. Just distance, range management, fast, crisp, straight shots. Pretty solid defensively, can wrestle, defensively responsible. But honestly, I don't think he actually gets Alves out of here. He's kind of been a decision machine in recent years. Has some pop on his shots for sure, but Alves is kind of all the way out or all the way in. So I more so see it just being a pretty one-sided, like 30-27 type decision. Hadzovic, Medeiros, I don't really feel comfortable backing either guy with my money, but I think it's probably actually another good spot to just go back, fight violence there. Both guys power, both guys defensive inefficiencies. A little bit of questionableness on the durability of Medeiros too, getting up there a little bit. He's actually only 32, I think, which is crazy. I feel like he's should be 38 or something like that. But,
it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that Medeiros was knocked out by Donald Cerrone at one point in the last 5 years or so here. That's kind of crazy to think about, like you said. So some durability questions there for sure. And, Ismagulov, as you said, we've seen a lot of these Russian type wrestling fighters. Sometimes they find the finish with that ground and pound. Sometimes they find the finish with a submission if, their opponent gives up their back or does something makes a mistake, but a lot of them, of course, we've seen them be decision machines. That's what they are. I mean, just a lot of decisions out there, dominant decisions, but decisions nonetheless. But they can also, I mean, if you were to take Ismagulov by decision, I know that could get a little sweaty still because I've taken a lot of Dagestani Russian guys by decision. And second round, third round, when they've gassed the other guy out, that's always a sweat as they look for that finish. But I agree totally there with you. Should be a lopsided victory for Ismagulov. Medeiros, Hadzovic should be an interesting one durability-wise there. So some interesting fights on UFC Vegas 27. That's the card top to bottom here, Luke. And just a few more for you, then I'll get you out of here. But, just overall here, I think we talked about it a little bit. And again, you can go to patreon.com and check all of Luke's bets out and go to his Twitter at SWR_betting. Same thing on Instagram, guys, to get more information on that. And I'll read it off one more time in a second here. But without getting too specific here, I mean, what would be a group of fights that you might be staying away from? We've already went over a little bit of them, but what would be some of the fights you'd be definitely maybe trying to stay away from? Or maybe even let's just staying away from the money lines and playing some of the violence props?
Yeah, I think the main event, like I said, I'm not going to try to get cute with it. I'm not going to try to sound like a genius on it. I really don't have a great read from a money line perspective. So it's another fight I'd rather back violence. Same thing with Tafa Vandera. Would not feel comfortable with laying -175 on Tafa. Conversely, don't really feel great about investing my money in Vandera at this point either. Algeo Ramos, once again, another really close fight that I could see playing out quite a few different ways. I'm not going to try to be a hero on that one. And then honestly, I don't know much about this Yilin Shaw guy who's fighting Kulabau. There wasn't a ton of tape.
Yeah, that was a tough
one
one
on him either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's a tough one to tape. Yeah, I agree there with you as well. There wasn't a lot of some of these guys. Sometimes, as most, some of people who are watching this who tape the fights as well, it can be kind of a difficult, a little bit of a challenge. That's one of them there. So I totally agree with you on all of those. Live betting angles, Luke, real quick. I mean, is there anything? I asked you about the Xiaonan fight against Carla Esparza. You said, be a little careful with that, but is there any other ones out there that maybe would be, you look at and go, that might be a decent live betting spot if something were to happen for either fighter in the fight?
I'd say one probably really sticks out, and I would say Court McGee over Claudio Silva, just because I feel like the win condition, I wouldn't necessarily say his win condition is round one. I mean, it's a pick'em fight. I mean, the guy's a black belt. He's dangerous, hits pretty hard, but the consistent theme with him is that he gets tired in extended fights, and we know Court can go a hard 15. I think he landed over 100 significant strikes on Sean Brady. So actually took the third round from Sean Brady too. So I think that's actually probably one of the better live betting spots. If Court McGee can, stuff takedowns, be defensively responsible, not get submitted in the first round, it's probably a pretty good sign for the rest of the fight. And you might be able to get him at still, a pretty decent number, which also probably mitigates the risk from taking it pre-fight. So that's probably my number one live spot.
I agree with you there, and maybe let me just throw one more at you on the end of that live betting angle real quick, and then I'll get you out of here, Luke. But the Shahbazyan Hermansson fight, if Shahbazyan makes it out of round one and Hermansson still, he didn't get melted in the first round, would you look at maybe Hermansson there and say, okay, Shahbazyan, depending on the line, again, I mean, it's tough. Shahbazyan is an elite level guy or has the skills to become an elite level guy. So you have to be careful, like you've even talked about the Xiaonan Carla Esparza fight, but would that be one maybe, hey, Jack Hermansson, he could start banking on that wrestling, Shahbazyan slowing down. I mean, would that be one you would maybe just put on the radar as well?
Yeah, I would say so, but it's really predicated on Jack approach, and based on how the first round plays out. Was Jack just getting him down and grinding him? Were those takedowns coming easy? Then I would say, it's probably safe to hop on. But also, if that's the scenario, the line's probably not going to be very good. It's probably going to be like -300 Hermansson after the first. So I don't think there'll be much meat on the bone in that scenario. But I guess from looking at it from actually a live angle from Edmen, I would just really monitor how the fight's playing. If Hermansson isn't able to get takedowns, if for whatever reason he's just really not able to tax that cardio of Edmen, and Edmen's just able to hang out in space.
Yeah,
that's interesting too. But I largely agree with your sentiment that I think Hermansson's probably a decent live spot, but just have to monitor how that first five plays.
We will see. It is going to be an interesting card. Obviously not as stacked as 262, but still some very good fights coming up Saturday night. He is Luke Lampe from Sparring with Reality Betting. Again, check him out on Twitter and on Instagram at SWR_betting. Again, Luke, check him out on Patreon, one of the best MMA betting advice guys you can go to out there. Go to his Twitter, go to his Instagram. There's a link there. You can go to his Patreon, a $10 option, a $15 option, and a $20 option. More information as well up on Patreon, what you get with all of those tiers with Luke's Patreon picks. So again, Luke, it's always fun, man, having you on. I know it's funny, you're going to be on again soon, or at least if you have time to. And then about a few weeks here, actually, UFC 263, of course, I always like to try to bring you on for the pay-per-views. So we'll catch up later, man. Maybe UFC 263 down the line, June 12th. Going to be some great fights on that one. Enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy the fights coming up Saturday night.
Thanks. You too, Jeff. Always fun to be on. It's going to be nice actually having a little break here next week, 1 week off of the fights. So get a little bit of sanity back in the brain, not having to watch fights every single day. So it'll be nice. But yeah, I'll definitely be willing to jump back on for the upcoming pay-per-view.
That was Luke Lampe. Again, follow him on Twitter and on Instagram at SWR_betting. Always have a great time bringing Luke Lampe, my guy, on to talk about all the betting angles for a lot of these MMA cards and, of course, UFC cards, including this one coming up this weekend, this Saturday with UFC Vegas 27. And again, I said it at the beginning of the show, I'm going to go live coming up later today, either on YouTube or Instagram or some live platform I'll be on somewhere, and I'll tweet it out at Jeff_Brantley. I'll post it on social media. That way you know which one to go to. But check it out. I'll have a few thoughts here and there about that UFC Vegas 27 card when that goes live, and also react to some of what we see at the UFC weigh-ins, which I think will be somewhat interesting here. I mean, again, Cody Garbrandt in the main event, coming off of an injury, coming off of some COVID issues. Not saying that's going to affect his weight here. He's always been, pretty good about making weight. So not saying there's going to be issues, but who knows? I mean, I think there's going to be some interesting angles. There always is for every single weigh-in. We had some today. And again, I'm recording this Thursday night for the Bellator 259 weigh-ins. Leah McCourt, she comes in 3.4 pounds overweight. That fight's still going to go on, actually. But she had to lose 30%. She forfeited 30% of her fight purse, to her opponent. So Leah McCourt, she misses weight. Also Leandro Higo, one of the bigger fights on the main card coming up on tonight, Friday night on Bellator 259. He also came a little overweight, so he forfeits part of his purse. That fight, though, still going on as well. So we didn't lose any Bellator fights today, but certainly, again, I mean, every single weigh-in, every single promotion, mixed martial arts, boxing, there's usually some drama, and I'm going to react to it coming up later today on Instagram Live or on YouTube Live, or maybe both. We'll see right here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports podcast. But let's get to that Bellator 259 card coming up tonight. Very excited for it. And, I'm going to go through the main event, and there's certainly some spots as there are on, and again, I know you out there, you Bellator haters, you Bellator guys that hate it, you Bellator hater guys and gals out there. I know you're out there. I know you're going to roll your eyes when I talk about this card and how good I think it is. And I'm not saying this is a great card, but I think it's some very good spots on this card. I know you're going to roll your eyes with that, but I am really looking forward to this card tonight. And I'll go through that. I'll be honest with you like I always am. I'm going to say when there's going to be a blowout, when there's not. And that's why we're going to go through in just a second here, the Bellator 259 card top to bottom. And then after that, I'm going to go briefly through that LFA card, Invicta, and then talk about that main event between Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez coming up Saturday night in the boxing world, which will be a massive main event. And really looking forward to that one. I mean, 12 rounds, championship fight, unification bout, super welterweights, going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to breaking that one down. But we are going to start with Bellator 259 here. And I'll just start going down this main card top to bottom. And we did actually lose one fight today, by the way. I did say that I lied a little bit. I said, Leah McCourt went overweight. Leandro Higo, he weighed in overweight. And I said, we had every single Bellator fight going into tomorrow night, but I did lie a little bit. We did have one that was canceled on this card now, not because of weight issues, but because the commission has not, or was not able to clear him for this fight. But Christian Edwards, he was supposed to fight Ben Parrish on the main card of that Bellator 259 card tonight, but that fight off now. The commission, they did not clear Edwards. He can't fight. I'm really bummed about that one. I was really looking forward to seeing Christian Edwards compete. He's 4-0. Listening to to him this week. Another reason why you want to follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley is a lot of these media days, pretty much all of them now, weigh-ins, all that good stuff. You're not going to miss a thing on my Twitter from Fight Week. You're not going to miss a single thing from any MMA card, any big MMA card, that type of thing. So you want to make sure you want to follow me. But, I was tweeting out the quotes the other day. I was attending that Bellator 259 media day, and hearing Christian Edwards talk and how passionate he was, and how talking about how he wanted to go make a statement, and just, talking about training at Jackson Wink, all that stuff. I was really looking forward to see him compete tonight on Bellator 259, but he's not going to now. Hopefully the Bellator promotion can get him back onto a card, hopefully relatively soon here. And I know Yoel Romero, he also had some issues being cleared by the commission. It happens in almost every promotion, but another, Bellator card here where a fighter was not able to clear the commission here. That definitely not good. That's not good. And again, hopefully Edwards can make, for whatever reason the commission didn't pass him, hopefully he can clear that and he'll be back on a Bellator card very soon. But we'll start off with that main event. Again, we lost that one on the main card, but we do have another women's flyweight matchup moving up to that main card. Valerie Loreda taking on Hannah Guy, and I'll preview that in 1 second here, and should be an interesting matchup there in the women's flyweight division. But we'll start out with the main event. Cris Cyborg taking on Leslie Smith for the featherweight title. The second matchup, again, both of these women have faced each other once already. That was under the UFC banner. It was one of Cyborg's first fights under the UFC promotion. Now they face each other again, this time for the title, though. That first fight, Cyborg and Smith, it didn't last very long. It only lasted a minute, but it was also a 3-round fight, though. It was not for the title. Cyborg did not have the title yet. She was not a champion yet. So some different circumstances this time around. And certainly as I'm about to go through here, listening to both of these women at the media day, all the comments they've made before this fight, this could be an interesting spot for both of these women. We'll see how it plays out, though. I'm going to let you know how it plays out right now, right here with my official prediction. And, again, the first time between these two women, when they first fought, Cyborg absolutely shredded Smith. Just top to, whole performance. You just go back and watch that, and it is a thing of beauty. And possibly, as I'm about to get into, maybe one of Cyborg's most brilliant performances. And you can argue that. You can argue the level of opponent, especially at the time with Leslie Smith, all that stuff. But definitely one of the more elite performances from Cris Cyborg, and there's so many of them. But she was so good in that fight. Her head movement, her footwork, her angles, her combinations, all on point, and she walked Leslie Smith down. She walked right through her. She was able to score that TKO early on in that first round, about a minute or so into it. I know Leslie Smith, at the time the ref stopped it, she seemed to be somewhat disagreeing with it, that maybe she didn't argue too hard, but, she also had that look on her face like, come on, let me go an extra 30 seconds here. Let me see if I can get back up. And, she wasn't out cold, but still, Cyborg was tagging her with some great shots. She was taking her head off the line so well, timing her punches so well, throwing that right hand, slipping her head, slipping the punches of Leslie Smith, ripping her hard. And then the punches, the flurry, the combination of punches that ended the fight, Cris Cyborg was able to not only land shots, but move her feet and angle away, or angle the opposite direction of Leslie Smith, able to change those angles and able just to keep tagging Leslie Smith until she finally found that shot that knocked her down. Then she went to the ground and pound, finished the fight. The question now, of course, for Bellator 259 here is, does that happen again? Do we see something similar? Leslie Smith at Bellator 259 Media Day on Wednesday was talking about learning, from her business adventures here. And, she's got it's no secret, she's been really into the business side of things. She was trying to unionize all the mixed martial artists, all the fighters. She was trying to get an MMA union. She's got a big business background. She said that has helped her have some more patience, learn things that, you can't just go in there. And I think she used the exact words that, I used to go in there and I would get hit so that I could hit the other person. She said, I'm not trying to go for that now as much now. The business side of things has taught me some things. So she seemed to think that she's a different fighter compared to 5 years ago, or close to 5 years ago, when her and Cyborg first faced off inside the UFC. Cyborg, though, some fighters, you would hear them say, oh, you know what? No, what is she saying? She's the same fighter. I'm going to go knock her out. No, Cyborg kind of repeated some of those sentiments, saying, hey, and she didn't use, Leslie Smith exactly, but she said, I'm a different fighter from 5 years ago. No one is the same 5 years ago. So Cyborg mostly at the media day agreed with what Leslie Smith was saying. So both women kind of talking up that line, kind of talking about, this isn't the same matchup. We're not taking anything away. However, and that's a big however for me, I think these are all smoke screens, in my opinion, to draw some interest into the fight. Are they purposely done? I'm not saying Cyborg, and I'm not even saying, again, Leslie Smith, obviously. I'm not saying that she's trying to drum up interest and that she honestly believes she's going to get blown out. I think Leslie Smith does think she's a different fighter. And you know what? She probably is. And Cyborg, she's probably right. Everybody is a different person, different fighter, different everything 5 years from now. Or, 5 years from the past. So I don't think they're lying about that, but I do think this is fight week talk. I think at the end of the day, Cris Cyborg is Cris Cyborg. Smith is not the caliber of fighter that gives someone like Cyborg problems. Toughest fight for Cris Justino in her Bellator career so far was Julia Budd, her first fight in Bellator. And she walked right through her. Now, it took her, some time in that fight to do it, but she destroyed Julia Budd in that fight. And Budd, obviously a very high-level fighter within the Bellator promotion. That's been one of the tougher fights that Cyborg has had. I don't think this is one of them here, again, where I don't think Smith's that type of opponent. Again, even Julia Budd didn't give her issues. The only person that has given Cris Cyborg issues is Amanda Nunes, and she's currently not in this division. The only other lady, even besides Amanda Nunes, I think, in the world that could ever give Cris Cyborg problems right now is not even in either the UFC or the PFL. It's not the PFL, excuse me, in Bellator. I just spoiled it there. She's in the PFL. It's Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison may be one of the other women on the planet, only women on the planet that could make that featherweight limit and possibly challenge Cris Cyborg. And we saw during the pandemic last year, Kayla Harrison dipping her toe a little bit in that 145 water that she went to Invicta when she had some of the time off, not fighting in PFL, and she had some success there, of course. I mean, she was expected to. They were not trying to challenge her there. That was a payday for her. That was to get some experience, also cut the weight, all that good stuff. Maybe she's someone else that could challenge Cris Cyborg down the line. And Cris Cyborg was actually asked about her at the media day the other day. And these two, I'm not saying they have an official rivalry. I'm not saying that they're not Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua yet, talking about, hey, I'm going to meet you outside. We're going to go bare knuckle it out. They're not to that point yet, but both these women starting to talk each other up a little bit. And you can tell that that's because they sense this fight is going to happen at some point. And honestly, I think Cyborg wants to be tested at some point, because until then, getting back to this fight, she's going to keep fighting women like Leslie Smith. And again, nothing wrong with Leslie Smith. She's a veteran. She's a good fighter. She's very educated. She's very smart. You listen to her press conferences. Very, just fun to hear her talk overall. So taking nothing away from Leslie Smith here, career, any of that. But I think this should be an easy fight for Cris Cyborg. I think she takes her head off the line, and I think she walks Leslie Smith down. I don't care if Smith's going to be more patient. I don't care what it is. The shoot box style of Cyborg plays very well in this fight. I think she's also the stronger woman here, and I think she walks Leslie Smith down, and I think she finishes this fight pretty early again. Probably first round, within the first couple minutes, 3 minutes. And I even thought about going into this fight, how ho-hum Cyborg's going to be about it in this win, and how easy it's going to be that does she attempt to go for another submission? Because we saw that against Arlene Blencow last time out, that Cyborg against Blencow, she went out there and just not toyed with her, but she was looking for a submission. She wanted her first career submission. She knew she could get it, and she ended up getting it. Is this in the type of fight that Cyborg does that? Possibly. Either way, I think it's an easy win for Cyborg. She retains the title. We move down the line, and 5 months, 6 months, whatever it is, Bellator will line somebody else up in front of her until Kayla Harrison signs within the Bellator promotion. But again, it's always interesting to still see Cyborg in there. She's a legend of the game. She's a big-time fighter. It's always fun, and it'll still be fun to see her compete here against Leslie Smith. But I think it's going to be a drubbing. I think it's going to be an easy win for Cris Cyborg. All right, moving along here on this Bellator 259 card, co-main event, Darrion Caldwell taking on Leandro Higo. The first time, and again, I just talked about, two fighters that have already faced each other once. Both of these men have faced each other as well. And the first time these two faced off, Caldwell finished Hego in the first round with a guillotine choke. So again, like the main event, I'll ask the question, is it going to be different the second time around? And this one a little different than the main event. I'll say maybe, but still probably not here. So I think maybe this could be different this time between Caldwell and Hego, but I don't think so. I think we could see something similar here, and Caldwell, such a fantastic athlete, such a gifted wrestler when he gets everything going. He's got, pretty decent gas tank for him. His striking, he has some tools as well that he uses, his high head kick. He'll occasionally explode in with some boxing combinations. Caldwell will sit on the outside, use some good footwork. So, Caldwell overall, he has a lot of skills. And overall here, I think he's the better fighter. I've always been impressed with Caldwell. There's just been a few things that have been missing about his game, and this is why this fight, to me, not the only reason why it's intriguing, because Leandro Higo, I'll get to some of the things he does well in just a second here before I move along to the Vanderford Edwards fight. But, Higo has some things as well, but this is such an interesting fight because, again, Caldwell, and I didn't even mention this yet, Caldwell's moving down weight classes here. He moved up from the bantamweight division to jump in some of the Bellator Grand Prix tournaments, of course. Now he's moving back down to bantamweight here. He's moving back down to 135, which was his initial division. And at the media day the other day, he was talking about wanting to run through this division again and wanting to get back to that title shot, which, of course, Sergio Pettis holds right now. So that'd be a big fight for Darrion Caldwell. So that's an angle in this fight. But, then you have, again, all the gifted things that he has, but some of the holes in the past that we've seen from Caldwell. But can he fill those up with now switching gyms? Darrion Caldwell has switched gyms. He's now at Sanford MMA down in South Florida. Talked about moving his life there. Talked about moving his dogs there at the Bellator 259 Media Day. And Sanford MMA, to me, is one of, there's American Top Team, of course, AKA. You can go through all the, I'm going to miss some here. There's so many, Fortis MMA in Texas. There's a lot of places, again, Team Elevation out in Colorado. There's so many great gyms out there, but Sanford MMA just seems to change a lot of fighters, especially guys who have a wrestling background. Michael Chandler, of course, wrestling background, trains down at Sanford MMA. At one point in time, Kamaru Usman, he was doing a lot of training down in that South Florida area. Now he's moved a lot of his camp to Team Elevation, but in the beginning of his career, he was down there. Gilbert Burns down there at Sanford MMA. There's a lot of, Vincente Luque. They're all training with the great Henry Hooft, a great striking coach, one of my favorite striking coaches. If you had $1 for every time I mentioned that on this podcast, you'd be a rich person right now. That's how much I love Henry Hooft. So, you add all of that together with possibly Caldwell figuring out some things and figuring out some of the holes in his game that he has had issues with in the past. It's a very exciting idea to me. And that's why this fight, it's just got so many things on the line here between Caldwell and Higo that I'm really looking forward to seeing which Darrion Caldwell we see step into the Bellator cage Friday night. Do we see some of these things cleaned up? And I'll get into them right now, because there is a kicker to this fight. There is a kicker here that Higo, he does have a chance because he is a good submission artist. He's got a pretty good guillotine choke, which I'll get into more here. Caldwell has had some issues with head and neck chokes. And Higo has a pretty good submission game. He's only got 2 guillotine chokes in his career, both of them somewhat recent, but overall just a good submission artist. So Higo could find a flash submission in this fight, certainly. Higo, volume-wise on his feet, and this is where you go back into it again here, where he has a chance with the submission game, but in my opinion, I don't think he does either, though. That Higo on the feet, volume-wise, he's mostly looking to throw counter shots. He almost tries to look too much for perfect timing with all of his combinations. So on the feet, I think Caldwell will win. He'll be winning those, winning all those exchanges there. Caldwell also, his footwork that he has, I think it'll allow him to stay out of range from Higo. Higo does have some decent calf kicks, leg kicks, but again, Caldwell's very good at exploding in and out, staying on the outside, then going in when he wants to throw, when he wants to shoot in on a takedown. So overall, the striking game, I think I lean Caldwell there. And then the wrestling game, again, Caldwell, that's his bread and butter. He's going to go to it in this fight. The thing that's gotten him in trouble is he's shot in on a lot of takedowns, and he's gotten his neck taken. He's gotten his neck taken in guillotine chokes, or like we saw last time out against AJ McKee in the Grand Prix, a neck crank submission that he had landed on him as he was in some top control on top, but McKee able to set the trap, and get that neck crank. So the main issue for Caldwell over the years is he has a lot of potential, but he's gotten his neck caught a little bit. And that's where this could, that's where Higo here could find that flash submission. Otherwise, though, I do see Caldwell winning most of this fight. Wrestling exchanges, yes, he's winning. Top control time, he's going to be winning that. If he does get taken down, because Higo will try to shoot in, he's got pretty good takedown defense. If he does get taken down, I think he gets back to his feet. Striking-wise, I think Caldwell has the advantage there. I think it's just whether or not he gets his neck taken on obviously, accident. He's not going to, shoot in, get his, keep his head in there a little too tight, get guillotined. That's Higo's best shot for me in this fight. But I'm going to say though that Higo has not a very good shot at landing that. And again, just because you have to get it right. I think at this point of his career, Caldwell, the move to Sanford MMA, you have to think that was one of the first things they've been talking about since going down there, with guys in the gym like Michael Chandler. He even mentioned Nick Lentz, some of these other wrestlers at the gym. You have to think they're telling him, hey, man, like, you keep getting your neck caught in these guillotines and these head and neck submissions, you got to be careful of this. So I actually think, and that's where, again, why this is so exciting to me to see what Darrion Caldwell comes out in this fight of. Has he cleaned up some of this? Because if he cleans up a lot of this, and you cannot, if he's more crisp and he doesn't leave his head in there as much and he doesn't get guillotine choked as much and there's not as many attempts on him, he could be a very, very, very tough fighter within Bellator, and he already has been. That's the scary part. But I think overall, unless Hego finds that guillotine choke or a neck crank, which is it's a harder submission, obviously. AJ McKee, very, very talented, set that up perfectly. Probably more of the guillotine choke variety or something like that. I think this should be a win for Darrion Caldwell, and see what version of him comes out. I think something else Sanford MMA is going to be really preaching to him going into this fight is go finish fights. He's finished fights in the past. I just said he finished Hego the first time. But I think Sanford MMA is really going to be like, hey, again, don't get too aggressive with it where you leave yourself open. But go out there, let's try to finish some fights. Some of these, and not that he hasn't been trying to, but let's go finish some of these fights. Use your wrestling. Let's use your ground and pound more. Let's get him down. Let's use some more of that submission game. I think that's what Darrion Caldwell we're going to see coming up tonight on Bellator 259, and I think he finds an inside-the-distance finish over Leandro Higo. Probably, as I said, inside the distance at some point. I think he wears him down, either submits him or via ground strike, something like that, or maybe even on the feet. Again, maybe we see a new wrinkle to Darrion Caldwell's game. Maybe that Henry Hooft background here of the experience that Henry Hooft has had. I mean, look at Kamaru Usman, and Kamaru Usman's a wrestler, right? He's gotten better at team elevation, no doubt that they've added some stuff to his striking repertoire as well. But certainly, you look at his boxing combinations, what Kamaru Usman is as a striker, as a wrestler, very impressive. Michael Chandler, wrestling background, got very good boxing. Gilbert Burns, one of the more interesting names recently to that. You look at Gilbert Burns, definitely a world jiu-jitsu champion. Very good boxing now, very good striking. I think we could see something similar from Darrion Caldwell here against Leandro Higo. I'm excited to see what version of him shows up tonight at Bellator 259, but I do have him finishing Leandro Higo inside the distance. We'll say rounds, maybe end of round one. We'll see how many improvements he's made. If not, again, round two, I think he finishes Leandro Higo. All right, moving on here to the next fight on Bellator 259. Another exciting one between Austin Vanderford and Fabian Edwards. This fight, by the way, too, between Vanderford and Edwards, that in the middleweight division, and one that very intriguing because not only of the trash talk we've seen this week between both of these men, both these guys really, well, I shouldn't say not both of them, more so lately. It's been Fabian Edwards this week talking most of the trash to Austin Vanderford, but Vanderford also coming back this week and basically saying, hey, let's show up Saturday night. You're going to see, talk all you want. You're going to see coming up on Saturday night what I have to bring to the table. So you have the trash talk going in this matchup, and both these guys, just the records on paper. I mean, Vanderford 10-0, Fabian Edwards 9-1. Edwards is coming off of a loss, but one of those things where he's going to be trying to rebound in this spot against an undefeated Vanderford. And before I get into the official matchup, just real quick again, Vanderford, a guy who I've talked about it many times on this podcast. He should have been signed by the UFC. A guy that was on Dana White's Contender Series, had success, by the way, wasn't signed. And there's another guy who's also on Dana White's Contender Series fighting tonight too on Bellator 259, Danny Sabatello, who's fighting Brett Johns, a former UFC fighter, kind of ironically, former UFC promotional fighter there, Brett Johns. So kind of ironic there, but Vanderford, a guy who had a shot to get in the UFC. The UFC blew their chance there. They should have signed him. Vanderford is very talented. I mean, even some of the stuff we've seen on Submission Underground, Chael Sonnen Submission Underground during the pandemic when Bellator wasn't fighting. We saw Austin Vanderford in a lot of those tournaments, and he really opened my eyes to his jiu-jitsu. I always thought he had some good wrestling. I always thought he had some good jiu-jitsu, but in those submission tournaments, he really, really opened my eyes, though. And now he's getting his shot now that Bellator is back up to fight a lot of these opponents that he would have fought last year, including Fabian Edwards, who is, of course, the brother of Leon Edwards, who does a lot of training with him. So a lot of intrigue going into this matchup. Should be a great one. Up-and-comer versus up-and-comer. And Edwards, as I said, he talked a lot of smack this week. Vanderford coming back. Any way you slice it, though, I think this is a good matchup for Austin Vanderford. Not great, but good. Sometimes we'll say, hey, that's a great matchup, right? I think this one's not necessarily a great one, but a good one for Austin Vanderford. Edwards possesses some power, has some pretty slick striking at times, especially his straight left, probably his slickest strike of all, that he'll throw that right down the middle. It's pretty straight. It's pretty powerful. He's turned out the lights on some guys with that straight left. It's very good. One of his other, maybe even his better weapon, part of his striking arsenal, is his good kicking game. Edwards got a very good kicking game, high head kick, throws it to the body as well. Very good kick for him. I think he gets some of that from Leon Edwards, his brother, of course. I think some of that's rubbed off on him. But you look at the downside, and I'm going to kind of give away my prediction here. You add all that together, and I know he's 9-1, but Edwards, you watch him, he stands a little flat-footed when he's striking, and not to say he couldn't clean some of this up. He's got Leon Edwards training with him, his brother. He's got a good team, obviously, so they could change some of this, but he stands flat-footed, when he's striking. I think that's why Vanderford will be able to avoid eating any of the big shots here, and that's why I'm just not overly impressed by Fabian Edwards. I guess that's the overall summary that I'll throw out there, that he has some things you have to really like, but I'm not overly impressed by him. Austin Vanderford, I'm more impressed by him, and does he have things, I'll get into him here, that he has to clean up? Yes, but I think he's just more overall the complete fighter right now. That Fabian Edwards, unless he cracks him with that straight left, or he finds a way to set up those kicks and cracks Austin Vanderford, I think Vanderford's able to stay on his feet, not eat any massive shots. He does have a pretty good chin too, even if he does eat a shot or two. I think he's able to stay on his feet, move his head enough, which is a big key for him. He's got to start moving his head a little bit more, throw some of those overhand rights that look a little sloppy, but throw them here and there, and then dive in, get in on those legs, get those takedowns off Fabian Edwards. Edwards is a tall guy. He is a big middleweight. He's a very strong middleweight. He is good at keeping his balance, trying to get back to the cage, trying to get back to his feet as well when he's taken down. But most fights you watch him in, most fights you tape him in, or I've taped him in, he does get taken down. And as the fight goes on, you can start to grind him down. You can start to put him on the mat and keep him there a little longer, especially if you have the proper technique and you have that strength again. And that's what Austin Vanderford has. He's very athletic. He's very explosive. I think he's going to get on those double legs, those single legs, able to get Edwards to the ground. And even if Edwards early on is standing back up to his feet, I think Vanderford eventually will get the takedown he needs, get into top control, and then I think he's going to have a field day on him. Vanderford, very good scrambling ability, very good at getting into good positions on the ground, very good top game for the most part. And then once he's there, he looks for those submissions. I mean, his arm triangle is very, very good. It's very slick. He sets it up very good. We saw that in the Submission Underground tournaments. We've seen it in some of his Bellator fights already, in Dana White's Contender Series. All that stuff, that he's very good at setting up that arm triangle. Could look for it again. I know he's probably also, up training with his, call him Mr. Van Zandt, right? I didn't even mention that till now. Maybe I'll just call him that the rest of the preview here. Mr. Van Zandt here, training with Paige Van Zandt up where they live. I'm sure he's looking for some new tricks here and there as well. I'm sure he's going to set up some stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing Austin Vanderford versus Fabian Edwards here. I do have Vanderford winning this one. I think the takedowns will be too much. I don't think he's going to get cracked with anything too big on his feet. He does have to watch his striking a little bit. I mean, if he's not able to get the takedowns here, and I just talked with Luke about, Carla Esparza. I'm not saying I think Vanderford's actually a better striker than Carla Esparza is, even though Esparza over the years has gained some more tools. She's put some more tools in the tool belt. I think Vanderford's a little better than that. It's not the worst striking I've ever seen, but it's by far not a smooth product at times. And he can get hit, and he can get hurt a little bit. And Fabian Edwards this week was talking about that of, when I start cracking him, he's going to be diving in desperately, and when he doesn't get that, I'm going to finish him. I tend to think that even if he does get hit and he dives in, I do think he'll get the takedown. But if he doesn't, I think he's actually good enough where he can stay in the fight and maybe have some success on the feet. So overall, could we see an upset here? Could we see Edwards win? Yes, but I think Austin Vanderford's going to be too much, especially once this fight hits the mat for Fabian Edwards. And I think he's going to keep him there, and it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe submitted him, maybe more so a decision at the end. Maybe it goes to the decision. Maybe he gets the unanimous decision, does Austin Vanderford. But either way, again, no matter how you slice it, I have Austin Vanderford beating Fabian Edwards here, either by submission or by unanimous decision here in this one. Should be a very good fight. Should be a very good fight, and a very good, as I said, some good fights on this Bellator 259 main card. And I'll go through these a little quicker here then. I'll pick some some of the other fights on this card real quick. I won't go through every single Bellator 259 fight. We'll throw my official picks, all of them up tonight. I'm recording Thursday night. I keep saying tomorrow, but I'll throw them up tonight, up on Twitter, at Jeff_Brantley, so make sure you look out for that. But next fight on this Bellator 259 card, Jaleel Willis taking on Maykan Mendonca. I'm going to go Jaleel Willis here, by unanimous decision or a late stoppage. Mendonca, very fun to watch. He's definitely very aggressive with his striking. That also opens him up, though, for takedowns. It also opens him up to be hit. He has his weaknesses, as I said there, with that. He also tends to eat a lot of clean shots because of how he fights. When you fight aggressively like he does, you're going to find finishes, but you're also going to leave yourself to be hit a lot. Not necessarily finished, as I said, Jaleel Willis. Not an overly great finisher, so maybe it goes the distance, but I think the fact that he's going to eat some clean shots here, I think the fact, too, that he can also be put on his back, Mendonca, because of how aggressive he is. I think there's too many things for Willis here, and it's a pick'em fight in Vegas right now. Willis actually at points, it depends where you're looking at it right now, even a slight underdog at times, the slightest of slight underdogs. But I think overall, Jaleel Willis will be able to hit Mendonca and then get him on the ground too, put his back on the canvas, use that wrestling, use a lot of clean combinations to get either a late stoppage, as I said, or probably that unanimous decision over Mendonca. But I'm going to go Jaleel Willis in that one. And then finally, last one I'll talk in depth here on Bellator 259. The fight that I just said was moved up to this main card, was originally supposed to be on the prelims. Now changed, though. Valerie Loreda taking on Hannah Guy. I'm rolling with Loreda here by TKO in round 2. Loreda, still young in her career, so this can always backfire, right? I mean, it's the same thing we're going to see in Invicta tonight and even LFA, where a lot of these fighters, not a lot of seasoning, right? Loreda, though, she trains at American Top Team. She trains at a great gym. Hannah Guy could come out and show off her grappling. Maybe she comes out and looks like Renzo Gracie or something crazy, right? I mean, it could backfire there, but I just think Loreda is going to be too much. She's got the Taekwondo background. If she stuffs these takedowns, which she's got a very strong lower half, Loreda does, which I think she'll be able to mostly here. I think she keeps Hannah Guy standing, and then I think she finishes her at some point. And this is another big spot for Loreda. You know, she's very marketable, of course, both on social media, her modeling career, everything, her mixed martial arts career now. She's training at a great gym, as I said, so she's in the gym with a lot of elite fighters. So there's a lot going for Loreda. And this is another big spot. Now you moved up to the main card. I think she finds a finish. I think she seizes the moment here versus Hannah Guy, but should be an interesting fight there. As I said, I mean, anytime you have two women here with, less than, both of them with 3 total fights in their career, it always could get a little greasy. But I think Valerie Loreda, I think she gets the job done on this Bellator 259 card. All right, moving real quick, some of the other fights, just 3 ones I want to highlight real quick. Sad Awad taking on Nate Andrews. I'm going to go with Awad in that fight. Grant Neal, Tyree Fortune. Don't call me Tyrell Fortune. Tyrell Fortune's brother, Tyree Fortune, competing. I'm going to go with Grant Neal in that one. That's another interesting fight. Both men 5-0, but Fortune's coming off of a little bit of a layoff, so I think Grant Neal's going to get the job done there. But again, Fortune athletic. He's training with his brother, so maybe Fortune finds a way to get the job done and get the win there. But I'll go Grant Neal in that fight. Just because of some of the ring rust, I think Tyree Fortune might have to shake off in this one. He hasn't competed since 2019, I believe late 2019, so this could be an interesting spot for both of those men, and a very good one. And then I already mentioned it a little bit, but I'm surprised this fight was not elevated. I'm surprised it's the second fight on this Bellator 259 card early on the prelims, so some people might even miss it. I'm so shocked at that, and I know it's a short notice opponent a little bit for Brett Johns, but Danny Sabatello, the Italian gangster, taking on Brett Johns in this one. Johns' first fight since coming over from the UFC. Danny Sabatello, a guy who was on Dana White's Contender Series, had a unanimous decision win. I thought he should have been signed by Dana White, Sean Shelby, the guys over there. They decided not to give him a contract. Seems a little Austin Vanderford-esque. Not saying he's the same as Vanderford, but a little bit, right? I think this could be a very interesting fight for a number of reasons. Sabatello's got some really good wrestling. You look at his amateur background, what he's been able to do. He's very confident in himself. Sabatello could get the job done. This could be a big spot for Danny Sabatello, especially, as I said, because of that wrestling. And you look at Brett Johns' career in the UFC, the guys he's had issues with, Aljamain Sterling, some of these other guys, wrestlers, right? Guys who have taken him down. So Sabatello could bank on that wrestling, get him down to the ground, grind him out, have a grinding type of fight, and get the decision. It's very possible. I'm still going to go Brett Johns, though. And that's why, and this is why a little bit of a buyer beware, where I'm going to go Brett Johns. But again, I think Sabatello is very live for an upset here that Sabatello, like I said, could use that wrestling, but Brett Johns at the end of the day, his jiu-jitsu, his striking, his 17-2 background in the UFC, the experience that he's had in the UFC, the fights that he has lost. I mean, the only 2 fights he's lost, one of them was to Aljamain Sterling, of course. I mean, both of the losses that he's had in his career were 2 higher level guys. So I think you have to really like Brett Johns here. I think he made the right move going to Bellator as well, where he felt they weren't really getting behind him, pushing him the promotion. He wasn't getting treated the way he should. He says he is now. I think this was a good move for Brett Johns. This is a tough fight. I think he gets the job done, but who knows? Danny Sabatello, he's going to have a lot to improve. He's going to have more of the chip on the shoulder here. Not that Johns doesn't, but he could have a little more of a chip on his shoulder here and maybe get the win over Brett Johns, but should be a very, very interesting fight between those two. And again, I think it should be elevated. I know Sabatello is coming in on 8 days' notice. They put him in here late. They were smart in doing that because I think it's going to be a good fight, but I think this one should be elevated a little bit. And Sabatello, I would love to see him stick around at Bellator. I tweeted it out right after Dana White's Contender Series, right after that episode, right after that edition of it, that Bellator should get on the phone. Scott Coker should get on the phone, sign him. Hopefully this is not the end for Danny Sabatello inside of Bellator, because they may not get another chance at him. If he goes back to another promotion, LFA, one of these other ones, it could be Sabatello getting signed by the UFC in the future. So I hope he sticks around with Bellator at this point. All right, so that's the Bellator 259 card. Again, looking forward to it. I'll be tweeting out live with it tonight at Jeff_Brantley. All right, running through the other ones real quick, LFA Invicta, and then I will get to some boxing thoughts in a second here. A little less quick than I will with the LFA stuff and Invicta. And again, LFA 108 coming up tonight. I'll have some thoughts on that too. Going to try to watch it along with this Bellator card. The main event, though, you have Josh Fremd taking on Gregory Rodriguez. I have Fremd by KO in this one. I like Fremd a lot. He's a very interesting fighter to me. He's 7-1 in his career. Maybe doesn't have enough experience yet where Dana White and the UFC would sign him, but they've signed a lot of different guys. I mean, Justin Tafa, again, he's fighting coming up Saturday night, and he's 4-2. So Josh Fremd, he gets a big win here, a first-round finish, maybe a second-round finish over Gregory Rodriguez. I think he could be getting a call from the UFC, certainly, and that's my prediction here. I think he's going to knock him out in the first round, Fremd is, and I think he's going to get a call from the UFC, and he's one of the guys that you want to keep your eye on. You don't want to blink when Fremd's in there. His striking, his grappling, his submission game, fun fighter. He looks to finish the fight. He's a Dana White type of guy. He's a friendly type of guy, and I think certainly with guys like Tony Ferguson getting older, some of these other guys, Jacare Souza getting cut. We've seen some of the cuts out there. Somewhat of a new guard coming in here. Josh Fremd could be one of those exciting, I'm not saying he's Tony Ferguson, but Tony Ferguson-like guys where he can finish you on the ground and he can finish you on the feet. I think he gets the job done tonight at LFA 108. Invicta 44, real quick here. Main event, you have Karina Rodriguez taking on Diana Torcotto. That could be an interesting one. I think Torcotto here, the underdog, could be another one live for the upset, and I'm actually going to pick her here. I think Torcotto, she gets the job done over Karina Rodriguez. Although Rodriguez, again, although she's 8-4, has a lot of skills, would not surprise me if she won that fight. I mean, I believe she's a minus 165, minus 160 favorite right now. So Rodriguez certainly could win that one, but I'm going to go Torcotto here. I'm going to go with the upset in this one. Being an Invicta 44, being that anything can happen, I'm going to go with that one. And then I might even go upset special in this one. Alicia Zapatella taking on Jessica Correa Del Boni in the co-main event. I think Del Boni she could get a upset win in that one as well. Zapatella, though, very good on the ground. Her wrestling, very good. She's just got to keep putting it together, though, not gas out. That's always the tricky part. But I'll go Del Boni tonight. I think maybe she gets the upset over Zapatella. But another one where Zapatella, she's got a lot of skills. Would not surprise me if Zapatella just grinded her out and looked like a minus 145 favorite or better in that one. But that's in Invicta 44. Again, there's more fights on that card as well. Same thing in the LFA 108. I'm going to put those picks up tonight as well, the full card at Jeff_Brantley. And then maybe even on Instagram at Jeff_Brantley tonight. So be on the lookout for that. I just don't have enough time to talk about it right now, especially because last fight I'll talk about, and then I'm going to get out of here after talking about everything here. I'm going to talk about this Jose Ramirez-Josh Taylor fight to unify the super welterweight division in boxing Saturday night. It's going to be going up against or a little bit after that UFC Vegas 27 card. This might be, again, Cody Garbrandt, Rob Font. There's some very good fights there. on that UFC card. But this might be the best fight of Saturday night between Ramirez and Taylor. Both these guys so good, undefeated. Taylor 17-0, Ramirez 26-0. Someone's O's got to go here. At least one of them, even if it's a draw, right? One of these O's is going to go here. Both these guys have never fought to a draw either. So no matter how you look at it, someone's going to have a 1 next to them on the right-hand column of the record here. And I've seen a lot of debate this week, and it's a highly debatable fight of who's going to win all the belts, who's going to be walking away with all the straps after Saturday night. I see a lot of people picking Josh Taylor. It's not a bad pick. I mean, Taylor, so sharp with his punches, his ring IQ, top-notch. Taylor, very good. He could certainly win this fight, and I could certainly see him using that ring generalship, sharpness of his punches, overall IQ to find a way to a decision over Jose Ramirez. But on the other hand here, and I'm actually going to pick another upset in this one, and I'm not saying I'm more confident in this upset than the other ones I was even talking about on Invicta or any of the other ones we've discussed on episode 88 of the podcast today. But I really like Jose Ramirez in this spot. His pressure, his power punching ability really makes him a fun fighter to watch, but it also makes him the buzzsaw type of fighter. We talked about Cyborg a little bit on Bellator 259. Not saying he's Cyborg, but he's that buzzsaw type of fighter with that pressure that when he's walking you down and he's putting those power punches on you, it can be very exhausting. It can be very tough for a lot of fighters. Again, and I understand this is why people are picking Taylor a lot, is that ring IQ, could he use his footwork, get out of the way, not let that pressure bother him, and just keep tagging Ramirez on the way in, find his way to pot shot, snipe his way on the outside to a victory? Absolutely. But I think Ramirez, he could find a way here to pressure, power punch his way to a decision, or maybe a late stoppage over Taylor here. I'm going to go Ramirez. It's an upset here. He's plus 185 in Vegas right now. But I think this is close to a 50-50 fight. I think Ramirez has got a good shot here. I think he either finishes him late by knockout or finds that unanimous decision over Josh Taylor. Again, he's got some good power. Could he hurt him early? Maybe, but Taylor's never been finished. He's never lost before. So I tend to think if he does get finished, it's probably late due to that power punching and pressure that just grinds him down and just keeps accumulating all those shots. But I'm going to go Jose Ramirez, like I said, by late knockout or unanimous decision. Going to be a very fun fight. I'm really looking forward to that one. I'll be tweeting along with that one too, of course, up on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley. And then the rest of that card's fun as well. I mean, you have Jose Zepeda taking on Hank Lundy in the co-main event there. I have Zepeda in that one. Elvis Rodriguez taking on Kenneth Sims Jr. Rodriguez, a Freddie Roach guy, training out of the Wild Card Gym. I like Rodriguez a lot. Also, Louis Correa on that card, taking on Jose Enrique Vivas. Andres Cortes taking on Eduardo Garza. Robeisy Ramirez taking on Ryan Lee Allen. I like Robeisy Ramirez a lot, the Cuban Olympian there. Raymond Mortala against Jose Luis Gallegos. I like Mortala a lot, another guy with a lot of power. And then to open up that card, as of right now, you have Javier Martinez taking on Calvin Metcalf. So it should be a fun night of fights. It should be a fun night of boxing. Overall, again, guys, it's a fun card. I'm looking forward to all of the fights this weekend. I mean, I just went over them. I know I rushed through them a little bit, trying to condense it, trying to get it in so it doesn't take too much of your time up. I didn't even have a chance to. I briefly mentioned it with Luke when I had him on, but Diego Sanchez, he has the breakup with Joshua Fabia today. Diego Sanchez, finally, Thank you, somebody. Thank you, Diego Sanchez, for finding your wits and leaving Joshua Fabia, hopefully finding a new coach, finding new management here, someone that will guide him in the right direction. That was news today. I didn't even have a chance to get to that. Maybe I'll get to it a little bit more coming up on Monday's episode 89 of the Man in the Cage, MMA and Combat Sports Podcast, in which I'll go over that stuff and recap this giant weekend. And Bellator 259 tonight, going to be very fun. LFA 108 Invicta. Then tomorrow, UFC Vegas 27, as well as that boxing card, Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez. Going to be a great weekend of fights. I hope everyone out there, you enjoy them. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley. Same thing on Instagram, guys, at Jeff_Brantley. Go check out the website, maninthecagemmma.show. Also check out the YouTube channel, Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. Subscribe to it. That way you get the latest notifications for all of what's going to come here. And again, it's going to be a lot. We're going to have our EA Sports UFC 4 simulation, Garbrandt versus Font, coming up there, being put up there shortly today or tomorrow. And then we're also going to have some other cool stuff, some live videos, some other extra video content I'm looking to add within the next couple weeks here. So a lot to find on YouTube. Make sure you go check it out. Man in the Cage, MMA and Combat Sports Podcast on YouTube. It's also, if you go to my Twitter at Jeff_Brantley, there's a link in my bio there. Check that out. And then if you're more into the audio version, head to Anchor, head to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, guys. You can find every single episode of the Man in the Cage podcast there, because that's, again, I started on my just an audio platform. So if you want to go back and check out episode 1, any of the episodes, check out where we were this time last year, which was a crazy time coming out of the pandemic. The UFC was back. They were rolling with their pay-per-views finally. Just full slate of fights scheduled out. If you want to go check any of those out, it's more on the audio version. And then we're up on YouTube now, which is very exciting. And I'm glad to be doing the YouTube thing, doing the video thing. And it's always fun to get my face out there. Maybe you don't enjoy it as much as I do, but I enjoy it. I enjoy getting my face out there on the podcast every single episode now. And again, enjoy all the fights coming up this weekend. It's going to be a great one. It's one of those weekends where you want to strap in, Friday through Saturday. It's one of those you tell your wife or you tell your significant other, hey, go, if you want to hang out and watch the fights, it'd be great. If you're bored, you don't want to do it, or something else is going on, hey, you can go do it. You can go do it by yourself. Or if I have any chores around the house, I got anything to do, I'll do it Sunday, honey, right? I'll do it Sunday, significant other. I'll do that on Sunday. It's one of those weekends where you just want to strap in Friday through Saturday. Ton of great fights. You want to stick here on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports podcast for all of it, all the coverage you need. Again, I'll be tweeting out all my picks and reacting live to all these fights on Twitter at Jeff_Brantley. And I will be going live later today, either on YouTube or on Instagram Live, so make sure you check that out wherever it goes. And again, I'll tweet that out at Jeff_Brantley. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Friday today. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the fights. And I'll be back here Monday, episode 89 of the podcast, to break it all down and some more MMA stuff, boxing stuff. There's always something crazy going on. I'll be back Monday with that. But until then, I'll talk to everybody later.